Welcome to AFI Smoko. This week we're going to talk about the latest developments in agtech. Richard's just back from San Francisco where you attended the World Agritech Summit, and agritech is certainly a bit of a buzz. Not only did you attend the summit, but you did a few visits as well. What was the one that impressed you most?
So the whole trip was facilitated by Austrade, and they did a really good job in getting us into some really interesting places. We finished the trip in Chicago where we had 3 visits that were really useful because each one of them highlighted one of the takeaways that I'd got out of the AgTech Summit in San Francisco. So we started off at Colton Sandbox, which is a big venture capital fund that specialises in agriculture. And over the last 3 years, they've seriously looked at about 2,500 companies to invest in, and only invested in 23. So, I guess that's an indication of just how much hype there is, but also how much pressure there is to get funding out of this environment.
So there's an awful lot of kissing frogs in that process.
Absolutely, and even with those 23, they expect that half will fail. So when you look at essentially 10 making it through out of 2,500, the hype that those 10 have to put forward to try and generate that investment and try and impress how significant they're going to be, it's no wonder that there's some suspicion out there, I guess, about some of the claims that are being made and what they might do.
And Case IH was another visit you had.
Case IH
one of the big machinery operators.
Yeah, look, they were really interesting because they were very supportive of an open data environment for AgTech, which was one of the consistent themes at the AgTech Summit, that everyone there was talking about the need to have open data systems and shared data, and Case IH was certainly putting that into practice and very bullish about that happening and being necessary.
So from a practical perspective, the old problem that if you had a green tractor and a red tractor, the two wouldn't talk to each other, that's a thing of the past now?
They're certainly talking it up as a thing of the past. Now, I'm sure all the farmers out there would still recognise that in real terms, in practicality, it's not quite so simple yet, but at least the signs are there that the machinery companies are recognising that they need to do something about making it easier.
Okay. And what about the issue of, I noticed an interesting question. I suppose we've been thinking that digital systems will evolve to meet the needs of farms, but there's also a hint of the reverse, that farms are changing to meet the needs of the digital systems.
I think automation is a classic example of that. Now, if you think now what broadacre farms look like in Australia, they look like they do to a large extent because of labour being a constraint, and so productivity growth has really been based around bigger machines, more efficient use of machines, take out the fences, great big wide things. Now, if you designed a system from scratch that had automation as part of the scene, I think everyone would recognise that it would quite probably look quite different to that. Particularly now with the idea that robots won't just be driverless tractors; they'll potentially be smaller implements, lots of them, the swarm approach. So farms will be designed to suit technology, I think.
Mm-hmm. And we saw a bit of that discussed recently, where breeding taller strawberry plants so that machines can more easily pick them than perhaps requiring humans to pick them.
And there was one other visit that we did in Chicago, which I think emphasises the systems approach to technology as well, and how a lot of technology might be delivered as part of a package or part of a service. And that was New Farm in Chicago, and we had a presentation from New Seed, which is their genetics arm or seed arm. And they've just commercialised an omega-3 producing canola. It's been a joint exercise with CSIRO and GRDC here in Australia, and that will be provided in a very closed loop type environment, with technology to go along with it. So, they're looking at, well, they're going to need to have a very good idea of the production, of the quality of the canola that's being produced, and monitor all of that. And so the technology to do all of that, whether it's imagery or, is likely to be part of that package as well. And I think that's going to be, a trend going into the future, that there's going to be just as much technology delivered through a package like that as there is that farmers likely to go and buy a black box that they stick in the tractor and, that it does something on its own.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because the initial models of how digital might work in agriculture, the sort of the platform approach, which captured everything about the farm, from the sounds of what you've seen and heard, it's evolving in a range of different ways. It's not predictable exactly how the models will play out into the future.
I think it's going to be a bumpy ride, Mick. And I think there's so much activity going on and so much investment going on, and the hype that I talked about. I think everyone understands the potential, but trying to pick the winners at this stage and the wheat from the chaff as such, I'm not sure I'm game enough to put up my hand, other than saying that it will be significant.
And it'll be different.
It'll be different, yeah. Thanks for listening to AFI Smoko for this week, and we'll see you next time.
Flop.
Talladega Nights.
I still haven't watched it.